Let's dive right into something absolutely wild happening in the world of military tech. Right now, we are living through a massive paradigm shift on the modern battlefield. It's literally a fundamental reordering of military power. Think about it. Cheap, everyday commercial plastics and simple electronics are suddenly rendering multi-million-dollar legacy weapon systems totally obsolete. So today, in this explainer, we're going to explore exactly how this is happening, why the traditional rules of warfare are being completely rewritten right before our eyes, and how superpowers are, frankly, desperately racing to build an invisible shield to protect their most prized assets. $10 million. Let that sink in for a second. That is the staggering cost of just one single advanced NATO main battle tank. We're talking about platforms like the American M1A2 Abrams. These things are $10 million behemoths of heavy steel packed with incredible engineering, crazy off-road mobility, and massive firepower. I mean, for decades, these vehicles were the absolute ultimate symbol of undisputed military might and industrial superiority. But, well, here is the devastating catch. For just $500, yes, $500, a widely available commercial drone can entirely disable or even destroy that $10 million tank. It's mind-blowing. A weapon that can literally be built in a garage and flown by someone with, just a few weeks of training, is out there neutralizing the absolute crown jewels of the world's most advanced militaries. This intense cost asymmetry is totally upending how we think about military dominance.
You know, there's a really fascinating historical irony here. If we look back to the First World War, tanks were the unstoppable, revolutionary new technology, right? They were specifically invented to break through those static, brutal trench lines at the Somme. But today, they're the ones being disrupted. The ultimate breakthrough weapon has somehow become this vulnerable target, forced to hide from a completely new kind of threat just raining down from above.
So, you might be wondering, why exactly is this happening? Well, the crucial point is that in recent conflicts, take Ukraine for example, Western tanks have been rolling up to confront basically World War I-style layered defenses. We're talking incredibly wide belts of minefields, huge anti-tank ditches, and artillery zones that are already perfectly dialed in to hit specific coordinates. But here's the real kicker. These tanks have to navigate this nightmare without the close air support and air dominance they were specifically designed to operate under. It becomes this static, drone-saturated environment that literally turns open ground into a death trap for heavy armor. What we're really witnessing here is the democratization of war. Think about the old power model. You used to need a vast industrial base, decades of highly specialized technical expertise, and incredibly deep treasuries just to project power. But this new power model, those old barriers to entry have completely collapsed. To make a great power bleed today, you really just need some smart engineers, off-the-shelf commercial electronics, and a bit of time. Smaller nations and even non-state actors suddenly have their hands on serious precision strike capabilities.
And the math of this modern attrition is just brutal. Let's put this into perspective. A single American Patriot missile, that costs roughly $3 million. A THAAD interceptor, try $10 million or more. Meanwhile, the little drones they're trying to shoot down might cost anywhere from a measly few $100 up to maybe $50,000. This is a strategic catastrophe happening in slow motion. When a defending nation essentially goes broke shooting down incredibly cheap weapons, the attacking side wins financially. They win even when their drones are totally destroyed.
And that leads us to a pretty profound shift in strategy. When smaller actors deploy these cheap drone swarms, their goal isn't necessarily to achieve some decisive traditional battlefield victory. Not at all. Instead, they just want to impose unsustainable financial costs. They want to exhaust the superpower's resources and basically prove that they can absorb the punishment. In this crazy new calculus of warfare, survival is itself a form of triumph. They don't have to beat the opponent outright, they just have to outlast their expensive ammunition. The end result of all this? A completely transparent battlefield. You simply cannot hide anymore. Any significant movement out on open ground is spotted and struck within minutes. In an environment like that, a lumbering military establishment with a massive, expensive arsenal actually finds itself at a huge disadvantage. All that bureaucracy, the complex procurement cycles, the rigid tactics, they turn into severe strategic liabilities against adversaries who prioritize rapid learning, fast iteration, and agile adaptation. But hey, let's be totally clear here. The superpowers aren't just rolling over and giving up. They're actively responding to this crisis. And they're doing it by shifting the paradigm yet again. They're moving away from purely explosive kinetic warfare, where you try to shoot down a bullet with another bullet, and they are stepping straight into the realm of the invisible.
They're fighting back using the electromagnetic spectrum.
To really understand their solution, we need to talk about soft kill systems. A soft kill active protection system, or APS, essentially acts like an invisible protective bubble. It's kind of like a sci-fi force field around a vehicle. Instead of firing a physical, explosive projectile, it operates entirely within the electromagnetic spectrum. It detects a threat coming in, and then it jams, spoofs, or just totally confuses the sensors and guidance logic of that incoming missile or drone, basically rendering it blind and inert.
And this isn't just some theoretical lab concept. This is happening right now. The U.S. Army actually just awarded a massive official contract to the defense giant BAE Systems to equip their ground combat vehicles with exactly this kind of next-generation electronic armor. It's called the Rook system, Rapid Optical Observation and Kill. This is a monumental shift. It really signals a move toward embracing sophisticated electronic warfare as a primary frontline defense for soldiers.
Let's contrast this for a second just to make it crystal clear. Traditional hard kill systems are physical. They shoot a real interceptor to destroy a target. Now, they are super effective, but they inherently have a finite amount of ammunition. If a swarm of, say, 30 drones attacks, a hard kill system is going to run dry pretty fast. Soft kill systems, on the other hand, neutralize threats electronically from a distance. Because they don't use physical ammo, they are incredibly well suited for dealing with the sheer, overwhelming volume of modern drone swarms.
And this right here unlocks BAE's ultimate advantage, what they call an infinite magazine depth. Because the Rook system relies on emitting electronic countermeasures, it never technically runs out of bullets. As long as the vehicle has power, that invisible shield stays up, continuously disrupting enemy systems. This entirely flips that brutal cost math we looked at a minute ago. You no longer need a $3 million missile to defeat a swarm. You literally just need electrons. This infinite electronic shield is desperately needed right now, because the threats out there are evolving incredibly fast. We aren't just dealing with traditional anti-tank guided missiles anymore. The modern threat landscape is filled with small commercial drones modified to drop munitions and purpose-built kamikaze drones that basically loiter in the air until they find a target. They specifically hunt for the weaker top armor of vehicles, and they coordinate in these autonomous swarms designed specifically to overwhelm traditional single-target defenses. So how does this all fit together? Well, all of this technology builds into the Army's unified strategy, which is known as the Modular Active Protection System, or MAPS. They aren't just crossing their fingers and relying on one magic bullet. They're basically stacking the deck. First, you've got your traditional passive and reactive physical steel armor. Then you layer on that soft kill Rook system to jam threats at a distance. And finally, if something somehow manages to get through that jamming, the hard kill interceptors like the Trophy APS are there to take it out at close range.
BAE Systems actually refers to this broader vision as their intrepid shield concept. Think of it as a complete 360-degree sphere of full-spectrum protection. And what's really smart is that because it's built on an open systems architecture, it completely prevents vendor lock-in. So as adversaries inevitably invent new sensors and different guidance techniques down the road, the military can rapidly plug and play new upgrades into the software and hardware. That ensures the shield evolves right alongside the threat. We have genuinely crossed a major threshold in military history here. The digital battle space is now just as lethal and honestly just as important as the physical one. Modern survival on the ground absolutely requires mastering that invisible electromagnetic spectrum just as much as pouring heavy steel for armor. Bottom line, if you can't control the signals, the steel simply won't save you. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. The $500 drone hasn't completely ended superpower dominance, but it has absolutely forced a massive reckoning. We've entered this sort of moment of the underdog. As the gap between the strong and the weak continues to narrow, we really have to ask ourselves, moving forward, does the sheer size of a nation's military arsenal matter as much as the speed of their learning and their ability to adapt? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the rules of the game.